Hello and welcome to Colleague 7 Sprint Review for 20.08.01. This will cover the work undertaken between the 4th of August to the 17th of August. Our sprint goal for this sprint has been to deliver the ability to edit documents using the local Word application, also to provide checklist functionality to the company entity. Looking at the high-level items and to explain further, and in this sprint we've been able to update the Outlook add-in with additional components in relation to the management of attachments, and I'll give a demo on this shortly. We've been able to update the edit document function so that it's now possible to edit a Word document without having to use Word Online by default. This is enabled via a global setting, and I'll cover this shortly. We've updated the scope of the Send CV email template so that it uses requirement candidate scope. This allows you to use merge fields relevant to the candidate and requirement in the email. Again, I'll give a demo on this shortly. The email signature area has been updated with a save and cancel option. This is so we can perform checks when saving a signature to verify whether or not there are any invalid tags stored within the source code. These were causing errors when sending emails. When arranging interviews, it's now possible to enable the diary and task panels by default, saving time and basically automatically generating diary and tasks. There is now the option to keep a checklist against a company. This is for ensuring that you've met with compliance on a list of established tasks when registering a company. It's also part of a larger piece of development work. And to help ensure optimal performance, we've recently upgraded the hosting server of the Colleague API. We'll now go for a brief demonstration on the key features from this sprint. So the first point to cover is the ability now to edit Word documents using your local application rather than having to go to Word Online by default. What I mean by that is when you're in any record that has documents, or perhaps even when you're editing templates, ultimately when you were selecting on a Word document, whether that be that docx or .doc, you'd have this option of edit document, and on clicking edit document it would open up a new tab and take you into Word Online. Now, Word Online, as good as it is, often wasn't the preference to the user. They would often want to hit edit document and open up into the desktop app. So what we've done now is allow for, within global settings, there's this option here of, this is under, so global settings, under the section of integrations, you've got this option of edit Word documents using a local Word application. So if we set that to yes now, and if I go back to here and I refresh the candidate record, what that effectively means is it still obviously downloads the document to your OneDrive as part of editing the document, but it opens the document into your local Word application. So on selection of a document, edit documents, hit yes there, and the tab opens, then it closes down and Word opens automatically, and basically you're taken into the Word document. So as you can see there, you're straight into the Word document there rather than having to go through Word Online. So that's again an update that's been made and is enabled via the global settings area. It's also a user setting as well if users have different preferences with regards to that. So that's the update we made there. The next point to cover is the updates that have been made to the Colleague Outlook add-in. So the Colleague add-in, this is within the Outlook application and also the Outlook web app as well. There's the ability to download the Colleague add-in now. And on pressing the Colleague add-in, what you have is obviously access to the summary view of the associated records linked with the email address of the selected email. So the additions that have been made to the add-in over the course of this sprint have been, firstly, the ability to now pin the add-in, so you can essentially move between emails, and obviously the add-in will update to reflect the email or the records associated with the email address of the email that you've selected. Also, you'll note that there is now the ability to work with the attachments that are associated with the email. So if we click Show Attachments here, you can see you've got the different attachments that are associated with the record or with the email, and then a means to be able to obviously select the attachment that you want to work with, and you have the option of parsing that attachment, or you have the option of attaching the document to the record. And if you choose that, then obviously you can name everything as you would need to, set it as to whether or not it's a default, set the document type, and so on, really, and basically deal with the attachments so that you can attach the attachment to the associated record in the system. There's some other additional extras as well. The last contacted date has been added as a field to the summary view for the purposes of viewing within here, and obviously the colleague icon as well is a link to the home page of the colleague screen, so it takes you actually opens up a browser and takes you to the colleague homepage. So there's a couple of extras there that obviously just help. This add-in is obviously progressing quite nicely. So those are the updates that can be expected over the course of next week as we deploy the add-ins latest version out to the user base. Next point to cover is the update that we made to the send CV template from the requirements. So previously, whenever you were within a requirement and you were looking to send the candidate CV through this workflow and it would generate the email form, the actual scope of this email form was actually using the contact template. So you could reference the contact first name, but what you couldn't do is reference the candidate name as a merge field, and you couldn't reference the requirement details as well. So we've updated that now, so it points towards the requirement candidate scope. So that basically means from a merge field listing, you've got the option of details about the requirement, details about the contact, details about the candidate. They're all shown within this list now. So what you have obviously is a means of building either a bespoke email on the fly using those merge fields, or you can obviously call on a template as we've done here, which is actually obviously utilizing those different types of merge fields. We'll hit preview there and you can see it's possible to be far more specific in terms of the email with regards to the candidate, the position and the nature of the CV being sent, which is obviously how we'd like it to be. So when ready, obviously the email can then be sent. So that's the CV send template that's obviously now been updated within the requirement area. Now the fallout to that, sadly, is that if you have generated any templates in the system which are using the contact scope for sending a CV, which is obviously the old way of sending a CV, then you're going to need to update that basically to be the requirement candidate scope. So you're going to need to essentially go into that template that you generated for the contact scope and basically create a new one, copy the details and obviously create a new template and point it at the requirement candidate scope so that it utilizes the right set of merge fields. So you go to here, email, and then the requirement candidate scope. And this is the scope that's being used when you're sending out a CV now from a requirement. So there could be some admin that's required just to update on the basis of that. But it's obviously all for the greater good in terms of functionality that it's then offering when you're sending out a CV. So that's the update we made there. The next point to cover is the update that's been made to the interview form. So this is the means for the diary and the task panel form to be triggered automatically when you're generating an interview. So we have now within both global and user settings is an option here for automatically create diary upon arranging interview, automatically create task upon arranging interview. And if those are both set to yes, what that basically means is when you're arranging an interview, the interview form will load, and you'll see that obviously you've got the interview details here, but you also see that the diary and the task option have been ticked as well. And if you choose to obviously have one set to yes and one set to no, then that's obviously going to be reflected here so that either one or the other is ticked. But this basically means, and these panels will update on the basis of the dates that you've entered. So if you put the interview date to say be the 25th, you'll notice that the diary details will update to the 25th. The due date is always the day after the start date. The subject as well is obviously automatically generated on the basis of the interview that's taken place, and that will update on the basis of the interview type as well. So if that was a second interview, then obviously these will update as well to reflect that. So ultimately what we're trying to get to the point of is that your diary and your task generation is automatic. So you can just worry about entering in the interview date and time, and then the diary event will obviously be recorded automatically without you thinking about it, and the task to follow up on that interview, if you wish to work through tasks, will obviously be generated as well automatically, and you just can hit save there, and then obviously that's automatically being generated as a whole. You then get to the point obviously going through to sending the interview confirmation, but that's the update that's been made to the interview form. The next point to cover is on the email signature. So the email signature has been updated now on someone's user settings or within admin when you're accessing an existing user. It's been updated to have a save and cancel option now. The reason why we've done that, previously you used to be able to just edit your email signature as you'd want to, and then on the basis of that edit, it would be written real time into the database, and then you could just leave the page and obviously go about creating an email and sending it out. Whereas now we've got a save option in there, so that what you need it to do is check the validity of the email signature to make sure that it will send correctly and they won't generate any errors. What we were finding is that for some clients, their email signatures would result in bad request errors when they were being sent out. So to explain what I mean by that, as an example, if I was to put in place an image which is externally hosted elsewhere, whereas it will appear fine here, when you actually physically went to send an email that contained a signature containing an image of that nature, it would actually result in a bad request, because Microsoft doesn't like to process emails that are pulling in externally hosted image sources. So this would be essentially nulled, and there would be a bad request error. So what we've done now is have it so that if you did, for whatever reason, put in place an image that was invalid, on hitting send or hitting save, sorry, it performs a check against the signature, and if it finds anything that's external, it's going to remove that and let you know that it's done so. So effectively what we're asking is that if a client uses or wants to have images within their signature, which of course you will do, that you use the option that's available to you here in terms of inserting an image. And then on the basis of inserting an image through that process, what you have is a means for the image to go into the email signature, and in fact to be converted and sourced in the correct manner, so that it could be processed through the exchange and sent out. So it's a very complicated way of simply saying, when you're creating an email, use the image option that's available through the text editor in terms of putting the images onto the email signature. And then when you save it, it will save correctly and remain within the signature. So that's the update that we've made within the email signature area. The final point to cover is the checklists option that's been added to the company entity. So checklists, and this is enabled on the basis of a global setting against the company section. You've got enabled checklists, and you can just set that to yes, and that will mean that off the view more menu, you'll have checklist as an option. And this is obviously with a means to there being a list of specific tasks that need to be performed against this company, perhaps as part of its registration. Perhaps you have to achieve a certain number of things before you can go ahead and create requirements for a company. So yeah, essentially it's with a view to there being a compliance tracking of different tasks that need to be undertaken against a company. So here, essentially working in the same way as all checklist items do, you'll have the means to be able to obviously specify requested dates, expiry dates, notes, obviously upload any associated documents, and obviously importantly mark check the certain checklist items to be set as complete, and that obviously keeps a track record of that. This is actually part of a larger project that we have at play, which is to do with checklist alerts, and that's to physically prevent you from doing certain workflows on the basis of outstanding checklist items, but that's to come in future releases. But adding the checklist functionality to the company entity was a component that we needed to deliver on, so that's been done in this sprint. As always, if you have any queries or feedback, please get in touch. I'll be keen to hear from you. Also, for those using Colleague 7, feel free to submit your enhancement requests via the support team or directly to me using the above email address. The next video will be the sprint view for 20.08.02, and as part of that, I'll include some quick demonstrations on the new functionality that's been added. Thanks for watching.